On today's show, Foundation membership drama. Dear oh dear. A big juicy update on Matt Burton. Yes, we're probably as sick of talking about it as you are hearing about it, but this update, I assure you, is worth it. Our Leeds recruits absolutely carved up on the weekend, so we'll unpack that a little bit and let's hone in on who our next targets need to be. Let's jump in.
And today we can announce that the Perth Bears are about to become part of the National Rugby League competition.
We are the Grizzwolds, Grizzly Lifelongers, a dysfunctional community, a Perth Bears podcast. Independent, yes, important to note, independent and fan-focused. I'm Phil, I'm a sports broadcaster and journalist, and as always, I'm joined by former radio presenter, future psychologist and present brand new dad, Mitch, who I understand has some hoodies in the wash.
Yes, we're going through a vomiting stage. It's fantastic. I went through two yesterday and a couple of the day before. So you've kicked me out of my back up. So I'm sitting here a bit cold, but that's okay. Bit of fun.
Far out. Not ideal. Not ideal.
Look, I should have known better, let's be honest. I should have had one prepared for today, but hey.
I feel like today could get a little bit spicy as we begin unpacking some of this membership stuff, which we'll obviously get to. I mean, I put up as you would have seen, Mitch, a quite candid reel on our socials just because I wanted it out there. I mean, yeah, look, at maybe a little bit negative and nasty towards the club, but I wanted it out there that people out there weren't the only ones that were having these issues online. So I thought it was just important to kind of like add to the conversation that it wasn't just them that were like, why did I just get overcharged or whatever? We'll get to that. But something else which kind of annoyed me yesterday and over the last couple of days is the news around Luke Burt signing as an assistant for the PNG Chiefs. And it's like even them signing a former player as their assistant coach seems to get all this good mail. But the Perth Bears, they can't do anything right, you know? Yeah, no, Luke Burt signing for the PNG Chiefs. That's another massive signing for them. You know, seriously, the difference in the narrative around these two new clubs coming into the comp is driving me up the wall, Mitch.
It pisses me off because, I mean, if you even left out the Jamie Humphries, and that's no small signing either. So every competition has to have the bad guy. I'm kind of feeling that's what we are. I kind of feel like because we're going into, unknown territory for rugby league fans, which is technically not true, that we're literally, how dare you want to expand?
We're going to need to refine that analogy and definition because it would be a privilege to be the villains of the NRL.
Well,
we're not the villains. We're the punching bag right now. That's it.
That's probably a better phrasing. But yes, I'm sick and tired of it. Like, why can't people just celebrate the positive?
I mean, we're about to talk memberships.
Yeah,
So,
which is, don't get me wrong. That's a positive. The number of memberships that we got out of all the chaos is phenomenal, especially considering where they all came from. So we can start with that, I reckon. Let's start there.
16,000 and counting memberships. And I saw somewhere, was it 85% majority WA based? Don't quote me on that number, but it's either way, it's a strong majority of membership sign-ups are WA based. And you have to remember this is a traditional AFL state where membership is obviously more of a thing than it is in the NRL. I feel like it's a growing phenomenon in rugby league anyway, but yeah, that's a really good start as far as their membership count is concerned.
100%. Like, it helps prove the doubters wrong in the sense that it's, WA are getting around it. Like, if you think it's 16,000 people, it's just for AFL fans, like, well, that's nothing. But if you look at comparatively to the other clubs, I think it's pretty solid in terms of memberships. We haven't even started in the competition yet. I probably should have got some numbers up. I haven't, admittedly. But look, what does worry me, Phil, is if it's majority UA fans, why haven't the Bears faithful jumped on board? Why haven't they? So I suppose this, I would like to segue into the fact of my discontent of why weren't the Bears members like yourself, like, people out there, myself, given some sort of a recognition that, hey, yes, these are foundation memberships for the Perth Bears, but it's the Perth Bear chapter of the North Sydney Bears. So why weren't the original North Sydney Bears given some sort of, not leg up or charity, it's sort of acknowledgement saying, hey, you're a cornerstone of this franchise's DNA. Here's a recognition. We wouldn't be here without you. It kind of feels like that this foundation membership launch is sort of just said, don't care. You're no different to anyone else. Like, it's sort of why, I kind of feel like they sort of really missed a trick. In fact, not to say they really missed a trick. To say they missed a trick was an understatement. I think it was a bit of a kick in the guts, and I know that it has got a lot of Bears faithful offside.
It has, and we'll get to a listener message.
Yeah,
someone that wrote in, but
breathe, bitch, breathe.
No, I need to push back a little bit because look, a common thread among North Sydney Bears fans over the years, like, you see news that there might, the Bears might pop up as the next NRL team in insert city, Gold Coast, Central Coast, whatever, and there's always going to be a section of the fan base which don't accept that as a thing, and all they want is for the NRL to give the North Sydney Bears their license back, which was just never going to happen.
No.
Sadly, they were never going to put a new team in Sydney where there's already too many teams.
Yeah.
They're trying to pull another team out of Sydney, which they've had trouble with, and they've sort of been circling the Sharks, pardon the pun, but I don't think it's probably not going to happen, right? So they were never going to put the North Sydney Bears back in the NRL. That's the reality. If you're a Bears fan that wanted to see your team back in the NRL, you had to accept that it was going to be somewhere else. And I'm stoked that it's Perth, right? I'm all in on this whole situation happening. But at the same time, there were always going to be people in Perth saying, no, we want our own fresh rugby league team. And the NRL pushed back. Peter V'landys and now former CEO Andrew Abdo saying, no, like, this is only going to work if you guys get on board with the fact that it's the Bears. We've got all of these fans based in Sydney that want their team back in the NRL. We want a team established in Perth, but these two ideas, they're going to have to align. That's the only way that we're going to tick this one off. And so as North Sydney Bears fans, we can't just expect that we're going to be pandered to. Like, at the end of the day, they have to work in WA, they have to work in Perth, and they need those fans on board with that and not feel like this was purely just a club that's been relocated. They need to feel like it's their own club.
Yeah, same thing. What I'm saying is, it isn't so much about being pandered to. It's about having some recognition, saying, yes, this is the Perth Bears chapter of the North Sydney Bears sort of club. Now, look, I'm sorry, but I don't agree with the fact that it has to be different. Look at what the Sydney Swans have done. They relocated South Melbourne, a foundation club of the VFL, to Sydney, and were able to have the two separate entities, to have the South Melbourne and the Sydney Swans, successfully aligned, where the Sydney Swans go, yes, we are Sydney Swans. We are the Sydney Swans, sort of, I suppose you could say, office of the South Melbourne Football Club. They recognise and they celebrate the South Melbourne fans every time they go to Melbourne. Like, if you have a look at the back of their football jumpers, they have founded in 1870.
But what's stopping the Perth Bears from doing that?
I don't know.
I mean, that's the point. We're complaining about something that we don't know isn't happening and won't happen.
What I'm saying, what my point is, when you have the idea of having a foundation membership, you would think that the founding fathers, aka the North Sydney Bears fans, who helped keep the club alive whilst it was on the NRL scrap heap unjustly. You'd think that the club would actually make some sort of statement or some sort of offer or something where they're not getting pandered to, just a recognition saying, hey, if it wasn't for you, this club wouldn't still be here. Yes, we're doing foundation memberships for the Perth Bears, but would you like to add on a Perth Bears membership or foundation membership to your original membership? I don't know. It just feels like they sort of just didn't care. Like, they were sort of expecting us to just buy a completely different membership for a completely different franchise. It doesn't feel like they're unified. It doesn't feel like the club's unified. It feels like the Perth Bears are sort of using the Perth Bears, the North Sydney Bears name to sell themselves.
I mean, I feel like they've done a lot to unify
But because
over the course of this over the last 12 months.
yeah, but I think they could be doing more.
I understand what you're saying, but again, like what about, I mean, the fact that 85% or whatever that number is of memberships that have been sold so far are from people based in WA,
Yeah,
kind of proves that what you guys are sort of maybe questioning. I'm not sure if it's legitimate given just how many Perth-based and WA-based memberships they've actually sold. So
But
there was clearly an appetite over in WA, and it's fair to give those fans an equal opportunity at membership.
100%. My point is, though, Phil, like it's supposed to be the Perth Bears. The Bears are back. They've been selling the whole emotion behind the Bears being back, right? Now, I think it's absolutely fantastic. I'll be the first person to say this. Yes, the appetite for a rugby league team in Perth has been growing. Absolutely fantastic. It's, that percentage of fans is amazing. But why couldn't it have been 50-50? Why couldn't it have been 50-50 and had 32,000? But my point is, I'm not saying that the NRL had to necessarily, hold the Bears' hands or kiss their feet. It just would have been nice for them on their launch day to go, hey, without these guys, without these fans, this wouldn't have happened. This club wouldn't have existed. It just feels like they sort of, the idea of having a foundation, like, I'll back up a bit. When the Sydney Swans took over from, when the South Melbourne was relocated to the Sydney Swans, yes, it's a different club. They didn't then say, our founding year is the 2025. They still kept the founding year of 1870. So that's what I'm saying. With this unity, they sort of, yes, they have to be two different entities. Yes, they have to be, the Perth Bears and the history. But it feels like they're not doing what they can to unify them. So why not just have, the founding year of the Bears being 1908? And
how do you know that they won't have
because if you look,
1908 on their jerseys?
No, but I'm saying if you look at the years of on the Wikipedia page, it's always saying, and on the actual website, I'm pretty sure I remember, I could be wrong, it says they're founded in 2025. That's what's irking me because I'm like, no, the Perth Bears.
Look, I know what you're saying, but I don't think you can just use the Swans template.
Okay, I'll use
with what's happening here.
Brisbane Lions with Fitzroy.
We need to embrace the WA public for this club to work.
Yeah, but the thing is, it was the
What
reverse.
about the fact that they've just announced that their home jerseys for our inaugural season are going to be the traditional red and black hoops of the North Sydney Jumpers in the 80s and 70s?
That's great that it's recognising, but it's not. I don't think it's necessarily. Yes, it's fantastic for the look. Like there are a lot of fans. There are a lot of fans out there, and I'm sure that someone, as you say, someone wrote in that they're not. They don't feel appreciated. They don't feel like they're part of, as I say, the sort of as a stepping stone. It wouldn't hurt for the club to go the foundation memberships for the Perth Bears, but like South Melbourne fans, etc., etc. I won't keep going.
Yeah, I mean,
I know I ramble, but
come back to me when you know what would have been an acceptable measure. We'll get to Fletcher's message. Congrats on the pod. Always a good listen and nicely removed from the corporate cliches coming from the official podcast. Very excited to soon have an NRL team to support again rather than just whoever is playing Manly. I understand that we were never going to get a South Melbourne style relocation of the Bears where we would be truly back. This is a new club with strong ties to the North Sydney Bears, but it is a new club. I accept that and understand that is the way it has to be, which I agree with. Yeah. But if there are such strong ties to their heritage, where was the option to link my North Sydney Bears membership to a foundation membership? $70 for a sticker and a key ring. So you can say you are a foundation member is fine, but I'm a North Sydney member. Where is the recognition that this is part of the foundation? So are we wanting some kind of email saying you are, valued or whatever? No. I don't know. I'll finish it off. It felt so much like joining a brand new club that I didn't actually go through with it. I know I will, but I can't help but think a golden opportunity was missed to really solidify the link between the clubs. Am I overthinking this and just need to be more patient, or do I have a valid point? I mean, I think we've kind of both sort of suggested where we lie as far as that question is concerned. My frustration with last week is simply the fact that they didn't even have a website that could function properly. And to those that might have missed, what happened and what happened on social media last week or on our social media at the Grizzwolds NRL, is that I jumped in queue. Now I'm kicking myself because I wanted to get in as early as physically possible. And I jumped in queue probably 30 minutes after the email came through that it had launched. And initially it said I was going to be waiting 4 hours to get through.
Yeah.
Now that didn't happen. I reckon I got through in about 20 minutes.
Okay.
And then went through the process, got through to the page where you had to purchase it, entered in all my details correctly, bang, click pay, and it said the payment hadn't gone through. So you're left on that page. There at that point, there is nothing to indicate that I'm a member or I've successfully signed up. I didn't want to refresh the page and then all of a sudden face the prospect that I'm rejoining the beginning of the queue. I wanted to get a membership as early as possible and have that number be as low as possible, knowing that I'm in this for the long haul. Yeah, maybe that's a tiny, small thing, but I'm sure there are plenty of members out there that were in the same boat, right? So I went back a page and then came forward again and did the same thing again. Did that a third time.
Oh, no.
Only to find out that I'd been triple charged for that process. Frustrating as hell. And no confirmation at any point that I had even become a member or anything like that. Now, obviously the club, figured this all out pretty quickly and got information through to their members, I would say relatively promptly, explaining the situation. I'll read it out. We're reaching out with an update, Our team has been working closely with our e-commerce supplier to investigate and resolve the issue, and we appreciate your patience during the process. Now, you look on the club's socials and all that kind of thing, and there was a lot of content just celebrating the big membership numbers and everything. I would have been happy or at least satisfied if they had just kind of owned this and not blamed it on their e-commerce supplier and just come out, and it was a really early opportunity for the club to just be candid with their fans and say, we messed up, and not blame someone else. That's where I sort of took issue with this. And then the refund process was sorted out relatively quickly. That happened over the weekend without issues. But then I went back onto the membership page yesterday where I had processed the refunds, and it was frozen on that page. There was still no evidence that I was a member. And so I had to send them a kind of blunt email yesterday afternoon that I was still none the wiser as to whether or not I was a member. Sure enough, 2 hours later, my membership number comes through. But it shouldn't take that.
No.
So the customer service appears to be fine. They're seeing emails, they're getting back to emails, all that kind of thing. But I just think there was an opportunity for them to just own up. They had one chance to get this right and they failed.
Yep, I agree with you.
Take ownership.
Exactly. I suppose the one, me being, which is different for me to be so negative. I'm always trying to be the positive one. But I suppose could it have been the fact that the website crashed so much because they weren't anticipating such a big number so quickly? No,
they had to be. I mean, their estimates were 30,000. We're up to 16,000. But they had to know that it was going to be like this.
Well, again, me trying to be the silver lining, but yes, I think it's ridiculous. It's a bad look. I'm always for transparency with clubs. I think fans appreciate a lot more. They have a lot more respect for clubs if they were just a bit more honest and say, look, we stuffed up. Let's learn for next time. As you've mentioned, they are on skeleton staff. Look, so they do a great job for what they have. If they had their chance to have it again, they'd do it completely differently.
Just have a functioning website, maybe. We praised them last week for taking their time.
Yeah.
Off the back of an understanding that they would get it right.
And they didn't.
And in the end, they did neither.
No. Do you reckon that was planning, and then try to be a bit rushed because of some of the negative?
Potentially. I'm sure that you're probably right. They probably did feel the pressure a little bit. Everyone was asking about memberships constantly.
Telling to do something.
Certainly felt like the vibe coming out of the club. Like Anthony DeSegli just constantly getting asked, when's this membership thing going to happen? When's it going to happen? So maybe they did end up getting it a little bit rushed. But, you know, all it would have taken is some consultation with a ticketing platform or a business that goes through this process all the time, you know, when tickets to a big event goes on sale or something like that, and not some third-party e-commerce website that just completely ruined everyone's experience on the day.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, fair enough. But just before we move on, what number did you get?
I think I did get a relatively fresh number, so I don't think it ended up impacting that.
Okay.
But that was only because, as it turned out, my first payment did actually process. It wasn't a failed payment. But yeah, because my brother, by the time he did it later on in the day, he was aware of the issue, and I think they might have even corrected the process by then. Okay. A day or two later, he got his number. So he got his number like 4 or 5 days before I got mine. But I don't know, 15457, whatever that means. I think his was in the 22s or something. So okay, cool. I think I did get a relatively new one. I wouldn't know. Whatever. Who cares? Let's move on.
You remember. I love it.
That's it. Now, there's pretty big news on this whole Matt Burton situation. Gus Gould made an appearance on the Buy Round podcast with James Graham last week. I am going to attempt to play that on the show now. Stand by.
He didn't come, but if he did... It's the same discussion around Mitch Woods. If Mitch Woods comes in, then what happens?
You don't need to be a genius to figure out if Metcalf comes in, Galvin moves from 7 to 6, Burton's in the 6, where does he go?
This discussion goes on without us all the time.
Where does his future lie?
People are speculating about this all the time. And I've had this discussion with Matt Burton quite openly. Sat with him and his manager 6 or 8 weeks ago. We sat at the start of the season and sat down and had a discussion. He's coming off contract at the end of 27. All these rumblings in the media. He should be playing centre. He should be doing this. He's going off to Perth. You know, the Bulldogs don't want him. I sat down with he and his manager. I said, listen, you're off contract at the end of 27. Just all this rubbish that's in the papers. We would like to re-sign you. We'd like you to stay with the Bulldogs. He said, I want to stay with the Bulldogs. I said, good. That's a really good place to start. All right. So over the next 18 months, we've got to work out what we pay Matt Burton and where he's going to play.
Is the natural progression for him to be a centre?
Well, you work it out. If he plays centre, what are you going to pay him?
Less money than he is at 5'8".
All right. If you're playing 5'8", what could he earn?
More.
All right. Well, he's got some decisions to make.
So just recapping, they discussed openly his future. Mm-hmm. It was agreed that the Bulldogs want him as part of their future, but also essentially admitted that his future at the club would not be at 5'8", which means he's probably getting shifted to centre. And if that is the case, the Bulldogs cannot pay him the same money that he is currently on and probably wants to be on for his next contract.
He deserves to be.
There is almost an invitation for Matt Burton to go and secure his future elsewhere. So reading between the lines, Burton will be granted an opportunity to speak to rivals before November 1, when he is officially a pre-agent.
Yep.
Which it is just firming up that Matt Burton is going to be our starting 5'8" next season.
Fingers crossed. I've said it once before. I cannot see him staying at a club playing centre, considering he left the Penrith Panthers, who wanted to keep him when he was playing centre. Like, he up and left the Penrith Panthers to pursue a career in the halves. Why would he then stay and be pushed back to the centres? Gus Gould just said as much, that he can't get paid 5'8" money to play centre. So whether he even minds playing centre or not kind of doesn't matter. If he wants 5'8" money, he's out the door. That's the bottom line. And they should facilitate that early to free up cash to go and, you know, play whack-a-mole and solve their other problems. And just get the media scrutiny away from them for once. But who cares about the Bulldogs? We're all about the Bears here, Phil. We're all about the Bears. It comes off the back of Matt Burton having
clearly his best game of the season
Yes.
for the Bulldogs, by the way, helping them end a 5-game losing streak.
He was on fire.
And now all of a sudden, hot off the press, called into Origin camp because Mitch Moses has been ruled out with a hamstring complaint. Maybe he just felt a little bit more freed up playing the other night with some of this stuff now out in the open. Maybe I'm reading too much into it or joining too many dots. I don't know. But everything just continues to point to Matt Burton being our biggest signing for the 2027 season.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's been shown of interest of something like this, but obviously they can't say anything because for legal reasons. But it really seems like the way that the Bears have built their roster to date, with the not paying overs, has allowed us to have this war chest to go, hey, Matt Burton, this is how much we can pay you. So we've got the I suppose the foundation of the roster built now, which is allowing us to again go and get some of the bigger names, which I reckon, as you say, he'll get 5-8 money and then some to come across. So
And then some. Enough to relocate his family or, certainly help his parents buy that investment property that they were over there looking at recently.
Yep, absolutely. Just bring the whole family over. Just Christmas at Burton's.
So Burton's one. Who are some of the other immediate recruitment targets that we should be going after? I'll list a couple. You tell me who would be your priority. Gemmet Shibasaki, because there's a contract standoff with the Broncos on what they think he should be worth moving forward, bearing in mind that he did play his way up from a train and trial only sort of 16, 17 months ago, all the way to the Australian side late last season and a grand final win, obviously. Charlie Staines playing over in the Super League right now with Toby Sexton. Tyson Smoothie also playing over in the Super League last season, but was also a member of that Brisbane Broncos premiership side last year and is reportedly, even though he's still got 2 more years on his Super League deal, he wants to return to Australia for next season and would be a cost-cutting version of a Connor Watson or a Cam McInnes, who it now appears we're not going to be able to secure. Yeah. And a slightly left field one, but one that we've spoken about previously and one that I think we should be going after, Savelio Tamale, the 21-year-old Raiders winger, who still has basically his entire career ahead of him, plus he's already banked, 30, 40 first-grade games.
Yeah, I think Tamale should be up there. He's a good yardage. You've been talking about the need for a yardage player, and he's definitely up there. I mean, yes, he's 21, so he's very raw, but look, he's got a big upside. He had a bit of a shocker on the weekend, but that's fine. I think he'd be up there. Shibasaki and Stainsy for me. I don't know too much about Smoothie, so I can't really comment too much on him, but I think Stainsy for me would be the absolute number one that we should go for our fullback position. I think he is the man, the Ferrari.
Staines has certainly developed as a player and as a fullback in his time over in England. He's been allowed to mature over there. Now, his form was pretty tough when he was playing for the Tigers in the NRL before he went over, but does appear to be a more complete player now. There would be a connection there with Sexton. And again, you slot Burton in as well. You've got that connection with Sexton built in. So add another connection in there with Staines at the back. Now, when I think of Charlie Staines, I don't necessarily... Ball playing isn't the first thing that necessarily comes to mind, but you look at some of the advancement of the way rugby league and the NRL are being played these days. Having run-first options at 6 and fullback might traditionally appear scary, but that's how the good teams are winning football games these days. It's just off the back of quick ruck speed and then pace.
100%.
It's not necessarily, the ball playing polish that has traditionally been vital in rugby league.
100%, 100%. The other connection you can make too is Stainsy from Forbes and Birdo from Dubbo. So they would have played.
Yeah. Well, obviously, the original reason why we targeted Staines was the Central West connections.
Everything
Forbes,
connects.
Ferrari for sure. I'd be happy with all those players. I think Shibasaki would be a good addition too because
Centre.
His journey, no, just his journey, and someone that clearly has had to figure out over time the best way to get the most out of himself, and someone that's had to drive high standards off the park. It was enough to warrant Queensland selection last year as far as Billy Slater is concerned. And I think that's where he fits in. I think the Perth Bears have done a really good job so far of recruiting players that have good standards.
Yep.
Luke Lowley being front and centre to that. Now, this is a kid who is driving standards at the Wests Tigers over the pre-season and off-season reportedly. And you get a Shibasaki in there who, from all reports, is of a similar vein. Mm-hmm. You add a Matt Burton, who is just a no-nonsense type, who is going to go over there and, he's not worried about how many Instagram followers he has or all that sort of stuff. He's just a footballer. He's a humble, with country backgrounds footballer, right? You get enough of these guys in a team together over there in WA. We don't have a roster which is glistening with star power, but we have a team filled with players who are going to be prepared to do the hard work pre-season, and we'll see what the fruits of that start to be once games are being played.
Yeah, marquee's in the making. And do you know who else is a marquee in the making, Phil? Mikolaj Olevski.
Mikawai Oledzki, part of that Leeds Rhinos team, which absolutely destroyed Huddersfield on the weekend, 52 points to nil, and between the three Perth Bears contracted players playing in that Leeds Rhinos team under Brad Arthur, Harry Newman, James McDonnell, and Mikawai Oledzki, the three of them between them scored 5 tries on the weekend. It was pretty special.
Well, I mean, for me, as great as Miko's tries were, his running meters in that 40-minute stint that he had was phenomenal. His tackle bust. He was on a mission, and it was exciting to see. And I was just happy to see Harry Newman just get back to his old ways and just the try scoring ways. So I've said it once before, and I'm doubling down. Mikawaj is going to be one of the guys who sells our jumpers. I'm doubling down on that.
Sure.
Look,
okay.
Look, and you know what? When it happens,
Leeds had 61% possession. Like, don't get me wrong, this Huddersfield side are average, and it was a one-way traffic, right? But Oledzki looked like the biggest player on the field, and for the first time, I watched him play for Leeds and thought, okay, he could become an enforcer for us.
You're welcome.
He scored the 2 tries, so he obviously got the fruits of his labour off the back of it. But 123 run meters from 16 carries as well, and he had that physical presence about him. Every team needs one of those players, and I'm starting to agree with you that he could one day become that. It doesn't mean that he's going to be on billboards, but
no.
But if he can become that enforcer for us in the pack, given that we weren't able to sign a Tino Fa'asu or Maliawi early on in the process, Oledzki could be a much cheaper version of that quickly.
Have faith, Phil. Have faith.
And Harry Newman, he was good out wide as well.
He
2
was.
tries.
It was it's probably the best game. I guess again it was against the Giants, but it was probably the most comfortable I've seen him play in a while. He had been injured this year, so he had a bit of a stop-start start to the year. And admittedly, he's down on form from what he was last year. But his defensive work, I've seen him. I am waiting to see get back to 2025 standards. But Big Miko, bring him on.
Big Mick, he was good. Anyway, I reckon that should just about do us today. It's been a long one, but I think we had to dive deep into that membership stuff. Eventful. It was that kind of a week. Right. Thanks for joining us, Mitch. Thank you to all our listeners that tuned in as well. If you haven't yet, please go and hit subscribe and or follow on your preferred podcast player, and find us on the socials, of course, at the Grizzwolds NRL on Instagram and YouTube. That will do us for today. We'll see you in 1 week from now on a brand new edition of the Grizzwolds. Until then, go you Bears.
Get amongst it.